They keep saying there's no alternative to mandatory detention.
That the only way to treat refugees and asylum seekers
is to assume that we're a threat to your way of life.
This approach will always lead to a system of incarceration,
abuse and torture.
We demand the immediate end to all forms
of indefinite, mandatory and arbitrary detention.
We demand safe passage into the country for asylum seekers and refugees who seek protection.
This means not dumping refugees and asylum seekers in locations where there's no chance of long-term protection.
Coordinated protections and rescue operations of refugees crossing borders by land or sea.
Abolishing temporary visas and restoring permanent protection.
Ceasing the refoulement and deportation of refugees and asylum seekers
back to where they have been persecuted.
Access to services and community support networks.
We demand that all asylum seekers and refugees currently in prison be immediately released into the community.
And given justice and humanitarian support without delay.
We demand that regardless of how asylum seekers arrive,
they must be settled as soon as possible
with freedom of movement and access to housing,
medical and psychological care,
education and training opportunities,
work rights,
legal aid.
We demand that refugee policy and legislation is made in actual consultation with the refugee community itself.
At both the national and international level
for a more sustainable, durable, just and humane approach.
To providing protection and resettlement for asylum seekers and refugees.
We demand an increase to the offshore humanitarian intake quota.
And the delinking of the quota from boat arrivals.
And split family reunions for humanitarian visa holders.
We demand that people refrain from speaking on our behalf and proposing alternatives to detention without consulting us.
These proposals and recommendations should never be made
without consultation with the communities that are targeted and impacted by these policies.
We demand that no one should be deported to a country that, instead of offering protection, guarantees persecution, torture, and death.
We demand compensation and reparations for
those who have suffered abuse within the detention system.
Detainees that have been forcibly deported or self-deported
due to the abuse that they faced in detention, both past and present.
Those who have been tortured physically, psychologically, and sexually in detention centers.
We demand accountability for government and non-government agencies who have been involved in running detention centers.
For government and security companies that run the detention centers.
For governments and individuals that have created, supported, and benefited from the establishment of these detention policies.
We are seeking freedom,
justice,
and the right to pursue lives
free from persecution.
We are not the problem. The system is.
Nothing about us without us.